Weilà raga! What's up, guys? How's it going? I hope you're all doing great today. In this video, I'd like to go over the Italian double object pronouns. In Italian, these are called pronomi combinati or pronomi doppi. This is when we have an indirect object pronoun followed directly by a direct object pronoun. So when the indirect and the direct object pronouns are next to each other, they come together to form a double object pronoun. So just as I said in the past videos of the indirect and direct object pronouns, those help us to make our speech very condensed and very straightforward. So now just imagine having both of them together in a sentence is going to make our speech even more condensed. Given that we're going to be talking a lot about indirect and direct object pronouns, you definitely have to know everything that I went over in those videos. Be really good at it, that way now when we're diving into double object pronouns, it's going to be no problem. So if you need to review or just have a nice little refresher, I'll have both videos linked down below in the description. So now, we've got the indirect object pronouns mi, ti, gli, and le, ci, vi, and then gli again. The direct object pronouns that we'll be using to form these double object pronouns are the third person singular and plural ones. So we've got lo, we've got la, then we've got li, and le. And what I'm also going to do is include ne. Remember la particella ne? I'll have that video linked down below. Everything's always down below in the description that I mentioned in the video. But remember when I went over that? Though that is not an indirect or direct object pronoun, you're going to find people tend to use ne a lot when using double object pronouns, so that's why I'm including it in this mix, okay? So now, let's start going through each one of these pronouns and seeing how they work. The first one is me, the indirect object pronoun me, which means to me in English. So now what I'm going to do is show you like little equations down here in the subtitles. That way you can see how it becomes a double object pronoun when it's next to a direct object pronoun, okay? So the indirect object pronoun me plus the direct object pronoun lo equals me lo. So me becomes me when it's next to a direct object pronoun, okay? So mi, lo, me lo. Mi plus la equals me la. Mi plus li equals me li. Mi plus le equals me le. And finally, mi plus ne equals me ne. Pretty straightforward, right? This is just the kind of thing that just takes time, practice, and a little bit of memorization to get down. But it's really not that bad. Let's now take a look at an example. This example is just going to have me as the way it is as an indirect object pronoun. So the phrase is mi dai il pane, mi dai il pane. This means, can you give me the bread? This also means, can you give the bread to me? It's pretty much the same thing. But now, how can we turn this bigger phrase into a smaller phrase? How can we condense it? What we can say is, me lo dai, me lo dai. Let's look at it this way. When I say to you, mi dai il pane, that's me asking you a question, can you give me the bread? Let's say after 5 minutes, you never give me the bread. So instead of me repeating myself by saying, can you give me the bread? Can you give me the bread? Can you give me the bread? I could just say instead, can you give it to me? Because we know what it is. It is the bread. Now there is an even more condensed way of asking this question, of saying this, but this is when you're giving a command to someone. I could just say, Dammelo, which means give it to me. Generally speaking, this is a less polite way of saying give it to me. Usually when you say me lo dai, it's a bit more polite, but we're going to jump into this kind of stuff. We're going to entertain this topic in another video. Now let's move on to the next indirect object pronoun that will become a double object pronoun when next to a direct object pronoun. I know, it's like we're saying object pronoun all over the place, and I know it can get confusing, but I just say it because I want to call them what they actually are, you know? So we've got ti, which means to you. So now here we go with the equations. Ti, lo, te lo. Ti, la, te la. Ti, li, te li. Ti, le, te le. Ti, ne, te ne. So here is a full phrase just with an indirect object pronoun. Ti voglio offrire una birra. Ti voglio offrire una birra, which means I want to offer you a beer, something that you will find Italians say all the time. They always love saying, if I'm gonna, thank you for something, ti voglio offrire una birra. I want to take you out for a beer. I want to offer you one. So, let's say someone said this question and you're like, oh no, grazie, non è necessario, dai. You're saying like, no, don't worry about it, it's not necessary. You're my friend, I'd help you out no matter what. They can say, no, ma dai, te la voglio offrire. Te la voglio offrire, which means, no, I want to offer it to you. Because we know what it is. La is la birra. Because la birra is a feminine word. So we can just say, no, te la voglio offrire. I want to offer it to you. Now we're going to move on to the third person singular and then the third person plural double object pronoun because they are the same. But let's begin first with the indirect object pronouns gli and le, which means to him and to her respectively. These will both have the same double object pronoun, okay? So, gli or le plus lo is glielo. Glielo. Think of like you're trying to say yellow, but you're saying it with somewhat of an Italian accent. Gli or le plus la is gliela. Gli or le plus li, see it's a different pronunciation, li is glieli. Gli or le plus le is gliele. And then gli or le plus ne is gliene. So here's an example with just using as the third person singular. Puoi spiegare la regola a Maria. Puoi spiegare la regola a Maria. This means, can you explain the rule to Maria? Now, if you want to respond by saying, yes, I can explain it to her, you can say, certo, gliela spiego subito. Certo, gliela spiego subito. We are saying gliela because we're talking about the rule, la regola, which is a feminine word. It does not matter that we are talking to a girl. If I said instead, puoi spiegare la regola a Tom, can you explain the rule to Tom? The answer would be exactly the same if you're saying that you could explain it. Certo, gliela spiego subito. Yes, I'll explain it to him right away. Because we are explaining la regola to Tom. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, it's okay. Trust me, when you do some practice, it will be crystal clear. Now let's take a look at using the third person plural double object pronoun. Remember, they're the same. Puoi dire le regole a loro, per favore, which means, can you tell them the rules, please? We're talking about telling something to them. What are we telling them? Le regole, which is a feminine plural word. So how are we going to respond? We can say, ok, gliele dico adesso. Ok, gliele dico adesso. Yes, or okay, I'll tell them now. Like, I'll tell them the rules now. I'll tell them now. So now let's move on to ci, which is to us, and then finally we'll end with vi, which is to you guys or you all. So ci, to us. Ci lo, ce lo. Ci la, ce la. Ci li, ce li. Ci le, ce le. Ci ne, ce ne. What I found helps to best understand how to use ci as a double object pronoun, che, is when we're using it with ne. So what I'm going to show you is an example of how to say che ne when talking about there is a quantity of something. Because we can also use the pronoun ci when talking about a quantity. Like che means there is, and ci sono means there are. So here's my example. Quanti negozi ci sono, which means how many stores are there. You can say ce ne sono molti. Ce ne sono molti, because this means there are many of them. See how this works? Because we're using ne when we're talking about a quantity, and we also use ci when we're talking about a quantity. This means, yeah, there's a lot of them. Ce ne sono molti. And we're saying molti because what are there many of? There's many of stores. So molto becomes molti. It has to agree with what we're talking about. This is intermediate, slowly going over to advanced Italian. So if this seems a little bit like, wait, I need to take a few minutes to kind of break this down, that's totally fine. That's actually really good. It's good you want to take some time to break this down. So I just wanted to show you how you can use ci as che and then with ne. But you'll find in the blog post I'll do another example of how you can use ci just meaning as to us. So now let's move on to the last indirect object pronoun that we will see how it becomes a double object pronoun, vi, which means to you guys or you all. Vi, lo, velo. Vi, la, vela, vi, li, veli, vi, le, vele, vi, ne, vene. Now let's take a look at this phrase. Here's the question. Ci prometti che verrai alla festa? Ci prometti che verrai alla festa? Which means, promise us you'll come to the party. Like when you're asking someone, like, please, will you promise us you're gonna come? Ci prometti che verrai alla festa? If you want to respond by saying, yes, I promise you guys I'll come, you can say, ve lo prometto. Ve lo prometto. It's like, yes, promise. You know, in English we can just say, yes, I promise. But in Italian, you have to say you're promising to whom what. So I'm promising to you guys that I will come. Ve lo prometto. That's why there's a whole phrase. You're going to notice I used the direct object pronoun lo. Why? I just asked you, are you coming to a party? How do I know what the gender of what we're talking about is if the gender of the person doesn't matter? So, here's how we figure it out. Generally speaking, take this as like a general rule. It's nothing that's set in stone, but take it as a general rule. Whenever you're talking about a verb, like you're promising us that you will come somewhere, generally speaking, you're just going to use lo. So that's why I say ve lo prometto. It's like, yes, I promise to you guys that I will come. So thanks guys so much for tuning in and checking out this video. I hope that this information got transmitted to you guys clearly and simply. Yet again, this is intermediate, slowly going up to advanced Italian, so it's totally understandable if it's a lot all at once. This is something that you need to take some time with, something that needs to take some practice, and the idea is that you can do this after you've already mastered indirect and direct object pronouns, okay? So this is what comes after those. Always remember to spread the love, guys. Have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Ciao!